like, photography is like such an interesting medium to capture moments. And it's like one of those weird things that I'm like, how in the hell did humans even figure out how to do that in the first place? Because like back in the day, it was all with like chemicals and like having these different mediums. And then you have to like go to dark rooms and do all this processing. And it's like so interesting because like back then you take an image like really seriously, like you're capturing moments, but you don't even know what it really looks like, and you kind of have like that one copy if you maybe have your negatives. And now we're in this world where like images are like, it's like nothing, it means nothing. You can take a million photos, upload them
Yeah.
to the cloud, you don't really think too much about the photo. You're like, okay, we can just delete a bunch of them. And it's like, yeah, this different sort of shift in like the value of images, and just like, the world of photography has changed so much. I'm so excited to kind of pick your brain about this world and really, understand what sort of influences your perspective, and, why you even fell in love with this medium of, being a moment capturer.
Okay. So I didn't realize it, but anytime, like prior to me officially starting photography, anytime I would go on vacation, I used to take like an extreme amount of pictures. Just kind of really, and I'm gonna purposefully use the word documenting where I was or what I was doing, just kind of documenting that time, that trip. And I never noticed it until I officially started to like do photography. I moved to New York in 2012 to get my bachelor's and also a minor, my bachelor's in accounting and a minor in finance. Along the way, I had a friend who was already a photographer, and she was trying to force her camera into my hand. Like, yo, you should try this, you should try this, you should try this. And it never really stuck. I guess for the most part, it was just because she was trying to like make me do it. And we had another mutual friend, and he eventually bought a camera for the church. And then he gave it to me and he told me, you can use it if you want to. I'm like, okay, cool. I guess shortly after he borrowed it to me, I had a shoot. I hit up one of my friends. I was just like, yo, I have this camera. You dress pretty well. You want to go to the park and take some pictures? And that kind of sparked the flame that's been burning till today. And I guess that him giving me the camera and me having the freedom now to choose if I want to do it or not, I guess that's what made me even want to try it. And yeah, so that's how the journey started. Uh, I made so much friends between 2013 when I did that first photo shoot and 2015 when I left New York to come back. Made a lot of friends, a lot of connections, just hitting up like everybody. Like, hey, oh, you want to shoot? Hey, you want to shoot? Meeting random people on the train and be like, hey, like, can I take your picture? Just a lot of random moments, during that, let's just say, year and a half period while I was still living in New York, while I was doing photography. Just falling in love with it, just enjoying hearing the shutter snap and freezing the moment. When I finished college in December 2014, I did have the option to stay in New York one extra year, I think. I think they call it OTP or something like that, where you can stay a year to work in the field that you studied. But I did not want to stay and work in the field that I studied. Um, so I had the opportunity to come back home and do photography part time. Uh, During the summers, while I was still living in New York, when I would come back, I would link up with Elvis Harrigan, and he would, take me with him when he was going to shoot, or we would set up shoots where both of us were shooting at the same time. And he was already established as a full time photographer at that time, so just coming back and via him, for the most part, having an opportunity to work in the photography field, I was just like, New York is like my second home. Like I really found myself in New York, but I want to do photography. So I moved back home.
I feel it. I
Yeah.
feel like what even made you go into accounting? Like, that's so opposite to, like, creativity.
So accounting was fun in high school, right? I'm pretty sure this is illegal to say, but I did a couple people SBAs for them, um, because it was really fun trying to get the balance sheet to balance, like that
You
real
mean,
that
like, the
anxiety.
challenge of that?
That was like the most amazing thing for me, and I loved it in high school. And leaving high school, I had no idea like what I wanted to be. So I was just like, this was fun in high school. Let me try it. But then I eventually got to cost accounting. I think in like closer to finishing my associates. And if there was one thing I can say that made me lose every ounce of love for accounting, it was cost accounting.
I feel you.
Oh my god!
You were
And
just like, this isn't fun anymore. Too much math is too much, too much.
I don't know if it was the teacher or just the class itself, but if there was a moment where I was like, I'm done with this study, that was the moment, you know. Um,
I feel you.
yeah, but as a person, I'm very what's the word? Like I need motivation. Like I need something to constantly be like pushing me slash challenging me for me to want to do
Yeah.
better, right? And funny enough, like while I was doing my first, let's just say the first 75% of my associate's degree here at USM, I was getting good grades, B's, some A's, occasionally a C and stuff. Because I was just doing it because I was doing it. But I went to one of the graduations when I was again about 75% done with my associates, and I saw that there were the three levels of um, honors that you can graduate with. There's cum laude, I think magna and summa. I didn't know that
Yeah.
until that point, right? Once I knew that that was available, every grade after that was an A. Like I think I did 24 classes in my bachelor's degree while I was in New York. I got 23 A's and a B plus. But it was only because I knew that there was like tiers. If I didn't go
There's
to that
ranking.
graduation and
Yeah, it's
I
like
didn't
there's
know that there were these tiers that fine, I would have probably just like through college.
No, I feel you 100%. I mean, at least for me in engineering, it was like not even it's not even worth it. Oh Lord. I was just like, we're gonna see
Oh
what
wow.
happens and we'll just be grateful that we've
Mhm.
made it through with all of our hair intact. Like
Yeah, and I guess that kind of is what drives me to with photography and now filmmaking as well. I feel like a lot of persons here on St. Martin who, I mean, whether they've been away or not, but I think a lot of people have the mindset of like, once I'm great on St. Martin, like, I'm great. That's it. Like, I don't need to like work on this craft anymore. But from me, from a very early point in my career, my my vision was like my quote unquote competition is like Mario Testino, Peter Lindbergh, Annie Leibovitz. Like I'm talking Vogue level, legendary level photographers. That's the people whose work I was watching and studying, and it's just like if my work isn't as good as theirs, I'm not happy. You know, even like now too. Like I have like three weddings films that I need to finish. But because my footage isn't as good as the guy whose course I'm taking, it's just like I don't want to edit because it's not as good as Eric's. But that is what that's what drives me. It's like there's yes, there's competition, quote unquote competition, here on the island, but it's just like that's not like where my mind is. My mind is like legendary status, like Pat Scola, the guy, Marcel Rev from Euphoria. Like, if I'm doing a video and it doesn't look like Euphoria, I just want to go home.
Oh my gosh, this is so
Yeah.
hilarious. I honestly like I admire that because I feel like, I think it's so easy to get into the like, oh, I'm a big fish in a small pond and it's comfortable and like everybody knows me, like I'm the
Mhm.
guy, so like I don't need to push myself. Like I can just stay in this comfort, zone and kind of just, ride this wave until I don't know, life ends.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
agree, like to have, people that you look up to that you're like their work, like it resonates on a level and it's like I want to build to that level of mastery because I know there's like a narrative that I can
Mhm.
share that's so much needed in the world. And especially I feel like for Caribbean people, like it's sad that, like, when we don't shape our own narratives, it kinda gets developed by other people, they tell us what our stories are, what our culture
Mhm.
means to us, what does it mean to be,
Yeah.
of this Caribbean identity, but when we are so empowered as creatives to, like, define that narrative and share the stories of people through, like, whatever medium it is artistically that really, like, gravitate to, it's, like, so powerful when you have that skill
Mhm.
set, like, why you're creating, the methods of really capturing the moments and then like doing it justice in editing. And I think it's so funny because actually I just finished like a video creator course that I was doing just for my own interest because I love film. I'm obsessed. Like I have watched so many of like the great films throughout my childhood because they're just so beautifully architect just like the story, the way that they edit it, that feeling that you get, the sound architecture, like all of it comes together to create this moment and feeling. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like, how do people do that?" Of a simple plot, but, like, they
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
resonate so great, and you see it, like, in, like, every aspect of, like, just, like, mixed media creation, and I feel like, trying to really, like, build the mastery skill so you can, like, articulate the vision that you see.
Yeah.
Like, that is the thing that, like, gets me so excited because 'cause I'm like, "Oh," like, that to me is, like, what life's all about, and it's like when you do it right, you just know, like, it's, like, perfect, and I feel you. Sometimes it's hard because it's like you know what
Yeah.
you're shooting for, and if it just doesn't meet that bar, it's just like, oh, like,
Yeah.
oh, no.
I saw the timeline. I guess they used the DaVinci Resolve. The DaVinci Resolve timeline for Wakanda Forever, and it's just like mind blowing. Like there's like probably like 47 audio tracks. It's just like wow. Because again, like right now, because I'm doing film, sometimes I'm watching the film and you're hearing something, but I know that is not a sound that was filmed while they were filming. That is somebody in a studio making a
Exactly.
sound and then they just add it in like after, and it's just like that really like
How it, like, messes with your mind to
mind blowing.
create this moment, like, it's just so crazy, like, it's like you take these things for granted, you're like, "How is that sound so crisp?" And you're like, "Yeah, there's somebody literally in a dark room
Uh-huh.
somewhere recreating all of these
Yeah,
noises so that it
yeah,
sounds exactly as you would expect it," but there's no way that you could actually just capture that in, like, raw reality, like, it's
yeah,
just I feel you, I
yeah.
feel you. I can only imagine how many cut versions just, like, oof. That's why you need a team though, there's no way
Hmm.
you can do that by yourself, like, a team, but a team of empowered creatives that get the vision, oof, hard to find, hard to find.
And that is what I was gonna segue to. What makes it hard here for me, I'm gonna say no at this point in my career, is first of all finding persons who love it the way that I love it and whose style is close enough to mine that we can work closely together. But also too, where filmmaking is concerned, sometimes somebody hires me to do a job and I'm charging them as a filmmaker, as the DP basically, right? But I'm also doing light, I'm also doing sound, I'm also doing production, executive producer, like all these things that I'm not charging for that I really can't charge for because this is a Martin. But even if there's like nobody here who's studying to be like a gaffer on St. Martin. I mean, there's one guy I know who I could like get to come and help. One or two guys I know who could come and help me with sound, but one of them is another guy who's filming just like me, who again understands what to do with the film because he does it for himself. And there's another guy who really understands the getting the sound because he works with Peter Sagnia often on like his movie sets, so he understands boom and okay, it's too loud, change the gain, stuff like that. But that pool here of persons is non-existent, but it's non-existent too because the market isn't really, there for that. So
It's a double-edged
yeah.
sword, it really is, because, like, for me, like, I realized, growing up, and I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are, like, we grew up consuming American entertainment, American films, American cinema, and for me, like, that really shaped my perspective as just, like, the stories that people tell, how they sort of shape our identity, but in the Caribbean, we lack that, or at least specifically in St. Martin, we lack that. We don't have our own TV shows, we don't have our own content that really echoes our
Mhm.
own experiences. And for me, it's like been such a shame that like that's something that's not prioritized because to me, it's a part of like building culture. It's about building our identity as a nation, right?
Mhm.
Like you have content that speaks to like the experiences of your people. But yeah, like we have like we focus too much on tourism, and I'm like, yeah, but the stories we can tell, I feel like these are things that would draw even more tourists to the country because it's a type of marketing that's like deeper rooted in culture, you know what I mean? And preserving culture and
Mhm.
to me it's unfortunate that we don't invest more in it because to me there's so much gold just sitting there in like untold stories about just our people
Mhm.
that I'm like, "Oh my god, guys, like why are we not doing this?"
Yeah. And the thing is, I think that because we haven't been, for lack of a better word, let's say programmed to tell our own stories. Um, I'm in a space now where I'm like looking for stuff to film, but because it's not a, a custom, a lot of people who have the stories aren't like telling them, right? So it's hard for me to get the story because nobody's telling the stories. Um, and one thing that I want to try to focus on, well, I've been doing it, um, is really like documentary style photography. I started a course that I should probably jump back on, but it's called the Art of Documentary because I feel like we have so much, like you said, stories here that go untold. Last July I started a documentary with a girl who wasn't born here, came here when she was like I think 3 years old. And when she became eligible to get her Dutch passport, there was a small hiccup in the process. And initially, I just wanted to do a video about her dance life or her dance journey. And eventually, I found out that again, she wasn't born here on the island, but she came here when she was like 3 or young, really young.
Yeah.
And she became eligible to get her Dutch passport, but there was a hiccup in the process and she was denied. So basically, she was unable to go to college. And it's just so interesting, first of all, in her story that, she's danced here in St. Martin, she's danced in the region, she's danced in France. Everywhere that she go, she represents for St. Martin. And just to see how hard it was or how much trouble she got in trying to get citizenship, it was just really interesting to me because a lot of the times I feel personally that the people that really ride hard for St. Martin aren't the people that are quote unquote St. Martiners. You know, a lot of people go through that. They have to go through the whole naturalization process, and that's not something that's really showcased
Spoken
here
about.
or spoken
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and a lot of things, a lot of times I find too, especially with artists, but just also in general, that a lot of the people who go really like hard and representing St. Martin and stuff like that are people who are not considered as quote unquote St. Martinist, because she's danced here on St. Martin, she's danced regionally, she's represented St. Martin in Paris, I think, in the dance competition, so to do all of that and repping this St. Martin flag to ultimately have to go through such a hard procedure to get citizenship.
Just to justify, yeah, it's ridiculous, ridiculous. It's crazy. They'll use you for clout, but then when it comes to when you need some, it's like, I don't
Yep,
know you who you for
yeah,
again.
yep. And yeah, we had a finished product over the summer that was like an hour long, but we're really trying to get it down to like a really compact, like 35-minute, maybe 40 minutes max type story. So that's something that I'm definitely like into doing, like telling people's stories and documenting things that, we can make today, but like 15 years from now, they're still showing it because these stories are still relevant. So that's kind of
Exactly.
where I'm trying to shift my filmmaking, even though I love doing the commercial stuff because those things pay the bills. But
Exactly.
but also too just wanting to have my commercial work look like the stuff that I see on TV,
Yeah.
wanting to get there. But I really at the core want to have enough of those like bigger jobs to free up my schedule to really work on these like passion projects that I really want to work on,
Mm.
because 2023 I have to get into somebody's film festival.
Have to.
I have to get into somebody's
Period.
film. Period.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's get it out there. I mean, honestly, I have always sort of admired like your lens, especially when capturing like the stories of Caribbean people, like just like even the way that photograph like Caribbean women, and just like the way like there's just like a strength and a power, but also like a very beautiful like look at what it means to be feminine, especially like as a Caribbean woman, where there's like so many things that I think come with that. And for me, like, I definitely think, like, being able to be a creative that shares the stories of our identity is just very much needed. We need to be able to share them because one, I think it's like it's our heritage, it's our roots, it's like the stories that make us who we are. But it's even just like, like you said, that documentation of like where we've been so we know where we're going, and like what are the issues that are most important to us, and why are they the issues that are most important to us? And what can we learn just from like understanding or seeing other people's experiences? Because the Caribbean is so diverse, especially St. Martin. Like the breadth of like cultural stories that you would be able to tell here, I feel like is so beautiful and so unique that it's a pity to me that we just sit on this gold and we don't do anything with it, because
Yeah.
there's just so much
Yeah.
that we could share that we're just not sharing. And for me, it's like even a form of therapy to be able to voice your experiences and be able to have that resonate with people. And I feel like, yeah, photography and film is such a very great medium for that, because it's like something you see, like it's something you visually see. And I think like that like they say, a picture can say a thousand words or whatever. That is, like, really true.
Yeah. And so for me, like there was a point where I was just, I guess you can say, just doing me, taking the type of pictures that I felt I wanted to take. But then I started to hear people speak about my work and talk about how I think saying emotive is the correct like conjugation of that word. Um, Speaking about how my work is so emotive and how you're looking at the picture, but it looks like it's almost like a photographer wasn't there, and you just kind of captured that person in like a really genuine moment, and just kind of hearing how people spoke to me about my work kind of helped me to understand, I guess subconsciously what I was doing, you know, because again, so much of photography, so much to me about just documentation, and that's why there was at one point in my career where I figured like I had to have been reincarnated from like the 50s or the 60s or something like
Hell
that,
yeah.
because just seeing like the way that my work looked without
Yeah.
me like
There's, like, wisdom to it, you know what I
yeah
mean? Like
and it wasn't even anything like forced, but I guess so much of the work that I was studying and consuming from the photographers that I ended up really falling in love with, it just kind of subconsciously kind of shaped the way that my work turned out to be.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious then, like as a creative, when you're planning shoots with like different models, what sort of influences like the theme of the shoot? Like, do you typically create like vision boards for like your different shoots, or is it more of just like you see something and you're like, oh, I have this concept, or you saw something from a film that inspired you, or I don't know if you're into Tumblr. And for me, like
Mm.
Tumblr has been where like I really like pin my creative vision and just like use that as inspiration that you then with like the model that you're working with kind of cultivate this moment that you can then capture that tells like such a powerful story.
Um, I want to say it's probably like a combination of stuff, right? So for me, sometimes I may be driving and I see a location and it's just like, yo, I really want to do a shoot here. And then somebody comes to mind that I think would fit that location. But sometimes too, it happens in reverse where there's just somebody who I want to photograph, and then I go through their Instagram or whatever just to kind of get an idea of what their style is, and then I let that kind of drive the reference images that I look for before I send them for us to plan for a shoot. I really try that things aren't like super planned out. Like even for example, my full moon sessions. Sometimes I just have like one simple idea, like, oh, I want to use candles, right? And the only idea that I have is that I want to use the candles. So we get the candles and then we go out, and it's just like whatever happens, happens. So sometimes I want to go to a location, me and a model, we head to the location, and it's really just like whatever happens, happens. And I think letting that unfold is what allows a story to be told, because it's not like you're manufacturing anything or you're necessarily curating something to look a certain way. You're just allowing the person to vibe in the
Yeah.
environment, and that in itself creates a genuine moment, you know?
Wow. I think there's something like so just like spiritual about that, where you have this sort of creative flow that you tap into. And, as the camera person, you're like looking through this lens to just capture the moment, and you're just like creating sort of the space to allow this sort of like genuine expression of self happen. And then you just like, yeah, you're like, "Oh, there it is," and you are able to pinpoint that moment and be like, "This is what I wanna capture." I guess,
Hmm.
like, did it take a lot of trial and error to even be able to be like to know when to capture the moment? Because like, it happens, like, so quickly, and if you miss it, it's like, but I'm curious,
Yeah,
like, how do
yeah.
you sort of, train your eye to know, like, "Okay, this is it, like, this is it."
Sometimes it's anticipation, and sometimes I don't want to I don't want to use the word luck, right? But so okay, I'm gonna give two examples. One of these I said at one of my exhibitions like a year ago. But the first part is brain fart. I'm having a brain fart.
I feel it. Take your time.
Okay, so let's start with the one that I actually remember first. Have you ever watched the Chronicles of Riddick with
No.
um Vin Diesel?
No, I don't believe so, but now I have
Okay.
something to watch. Adding to
Okay,
the
so
list.
it's a really good movie, and in the movie, there's these people called necromongers, and I'm not sure if all of the necromongers have this ability or if it's just like the head guy, but he
Mm.
has this ability to not necessarily teleport, but if his body is hair, he can move his spirit to hair, and then his body will come and catch up to it, right?
Ooh, that's
So
interesting.
he uses that to when he's fighting to evade attacks, right? But okay, so I'm not gonna give you a spoiler on the movie because I'm just gonna tell you something that happened. But anyway, um, what I feel like sometimes, let's just say I have a picture with a girl standing on a rock. I feel like the the spirit was standing on that rock even before we got to the location. And then when she went randomly and stood on that rock, she just fell into place. So
Wow.
it's almost like the stories are there already and it's just waiting
Yeah.
for somebody to
To be the
fall in,
character.
to stand on
Yeah.
that rock or to sit on
Wow.
that chair, and then it just happens. I feel like they're waiting to be told.
That's so crazy. Ugh. Ooh, that triggers all of these thoughts that I have that I'm like, "Do I even wanna go down this rabbit hole?" No, that is so beautifully said. Oh my gosh. Ugh. Yeah, that makes me think, cause like, just I'll go on the slight tangent, like, in my meditation group, like, we've been talking a lot about, like, what is the self that we identify as, and, like, is our body ourselves? And, like, for me, I've been, like, contemplating this duality of, like, our individual nature, of, like, our egos and our personality versus, like, our dependent nature and our community who, like, gives us our identity, they give us our name, they give us, our racial groups, all of these things, and it's so interesting, like he's like, I always wonder, like, are our stories something that's sort of, like, already written, but we're in this timeline where we're falling into these moments as they
Mm,
sort of, like, just arise, and yeah, like, the way that you said that, like, the spirit is there and, when you show up to the place, it's like it just sort of falls into what was supposed to be, and it is what it's supposed to be because it's what happened, and it's, like, this interesting thing of, like, our lives unfolding and us sort of just being like the audience watching it unfold. And there's like a beauty to that to just be able to observe it and yeah, sort of just like surrender to that flow and know that like the moments are there. We just sort of have to remove the resistance that's stopping us
hmm
from falling into it. So,
Yeah.
ah, so beautiful, so beautiful. Wait, so the Moonlight stories, were all of these images taken under the full moon? Was that like the premise of it
Yes.
or
Yes. So each
ooh.
of them was on the night, on the day of the full moon. So I was so
Mm.
like, I'm so like weird with it that if the full moon fell on the 8th, I can shoot in the morning, I can shoot at the night, but if midnight reaches and the clock changes to the 9th, the shoot is over. I am
But
not
that's
shooting if it's
perfect.
not on the day of the full moon.
That is so perfect. That's talking about boundaries, creating within constraints right there.
Yeah,
You're like, "No, a second over, the
yeah,
window is gone." That
yeah.
is so powerful. I feel like the full moon and, like, the moon cycles are something that's so, like, not as understood as well as they probably should be because they, like, influence the land and the sea and, like, us being islanders and growing up to this connection with the ocean and let's just, like, moving and grooving with the lunar cycles. Oof. So powerful, so powerful. I guess, like, what inspired the idea behind that?
So it was an accident, the way that I figured it out.
An accident, okay.
It was an accident. I was out on a shoot with, I don't know if you know Kalua, and it got late. So I just kept like putting my ISO higher and higher and higher and higher, and it's just like, this is amazing. The camera is still taking pictures, and it's like night. But it was a week before there was an actual full moon, so the moon was already like pretty much bright already. So I was just like blown away by the fact that my camera was still able to take pictures even though the sun had set like an hour ago, you know? And then once I saw that the camera was capable of doing that, there was a full moon the week after. So I got Kalua again and I got Emily and we went and we had a shoot under the actual full moon, which was a super moon at the time. And yeah, just like blown away at the fact that first of all the camera was able to take those pictures, but also I was taking pictures at night and it was looking like it was like the day. Um, yeah, so I did the shoot. I did a full moon shoot a couple times after that, but just for fun because hey, it's a full moon. Hey, you want to go shoot? Sure, why not? Type
It's a
vibes.
whole vibe, It's like
Yeah.
you're moving with, like, the calendars of, like, the celestial bodies, There's something really cool about that.
Yeah. And then in December 2019, I had a shoot again with Emily the night like before her birthday. So her birthday was the 13th, and we shot the night of the 12th, which was the full moon. And then, we just had a really good vibe. She's one of the models that I shot a lot. So just having such a good time with her, bringing in her birthday with her. I just decided after that I would shoot every full moon after that. And then, yeah, so from that time straight until March this year, I shot every full moon or
Wow.
under every full moon. Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. I'm curious then, as someone that like has been a photographer, in the islands, do you see like a particular trend with like this type of photography that like people request? Cause like I know like I feel like birthday shoots and just like feeling like a badass type of shoots or something that's like so a part of our culture. But I'm curious like how this trend has sort of formed or it's like kind of a thing, that people do to sort of mark their life. They're like, I'm gonna have a photo shoot. To
I
sort
just
of
fainted, by the
celebrate
way.
these things.
You just said birthday shoot and I fainted. Because for me personally, like I I personally don't like to do it just because I don't know. Like you said, it's become a trend, and trends aren't bad. Um, but I don't know.
But
I
it's
feel
like
like
you're trying to be divergent from like
yeah,
mainstream. You're trying to like really have a unique artistic voice, I feel. And you're like, I feel like I could see how that could feel like it's sort of taking away from
and
from
you feel
from it.
a little confined almost, and I don't really work so well, I guess, in those environments. So
It's hilarious. I guess, like, are there a particular style of shoot that you really love? Because I notice a lot of your work is, like, very much portraits or, like, people focused, and I'm curious, is that, like, just your preference for it to be people focused, or are you, like, interested in even doing, like, landscapes or architecture or, like, things that are more abstract?
definitely pro pro people. Um, I mean, like if I'm out and I look out and there's a really nice view, I can snap it. Or if I'm in the city and there's a really cool building or something, I can snap it. But I prefer having someone to interact with.
Hmm,
Yeah,
definitely. And then I'm curious, like, because I feel like, the NFT space for creatives has kind of been like a hot topic in these weird pandemic-ish times. And when it comes to like the ownership of artistic work, I feel like there's so much more work that needs to be done there just to ensure that the people that create really have like ownership over their creativity. And especially with like models and just like using there's so many different players that you said like that come into a project, whether it's like hair, makeup, wardrobe, styling, lighting, sound, all of these things. I'm curious like how you think about like ownership of creative pieces, especially when there's like a synergy that happens between like the photographer and the model and like even like other people that are working in the background, making sure that like there's equity there or like there's clarity there to ensure like the parties understand sort of like the role, but even can be rewarded for sort of their contribution to like the piece of art.
I try to be as easy, easy, beautiful cover girl as possible. Um, so I try not to like make too much of a headache about like the ownership of the pictures or the videos, even in like in terms of the documentary I was doing with the girl, you know, she was completely fine until I guess she had a conversation with somebody, and it was kind of like, is it your documentary or is it his? You know? And I guess that was an interesting conversation for us to have. And I told her, I mean, if we're going on technicality, it's mine, but I'm not gonna use this in any on any platform without your consent. And if you need to use it for anything, you can use it for anything. If I make money from it, you make money from it, and vice versa. So it's not like I'm trying to exclude you from anything that ownership brings. I'm not trying to exclude you from any of the rewards from ownership of the video, but I think if
Yeah.
we're talking technicality to it, it's
Yeah.
your story, but my end product. Just thinking about a painting, even if I create this masterpiece painting, but I bought the paint from the dollar store and I got the brushes from Kevin and the easel was a gift from this person. I sat here for 20 hours and did this painting. So I can give credit and tag everybody who helped to make this possible, but at the end of the day, the painting is ultimately mine.
And I guess, like, are you pro NFTs? Do you think, like, they're a great sort of avenue to try to advocate for, like, creative ownership, especially, like, as people do, like, remixes or, like, maybe they sample your work in, like, other work or, like, weird gray areas like that, especially in the internet when, like, you upload an image, it can kind of just be taken, without any
Yeah.
way of being like, "Oh, that's Cameron's work," unless you knew that that was Cameron's work. They could be like, "Oh,
hmm
yeah, like, that's me in some shoot and wherever
hmm
I guess, like, yeah, how do you have you tried using NFTs or like do you have any thoughts about their value in just making it easier for you to advocate for your work, or are you kind of just like it's still too early for it to be like really useful for artists?
Yeah, because there was a friend of mine who was definitely trying to get me into it just because I guess he knew that, I already have like so much content. And it was something that, I watched a couple of videos on or tried to get into, but the whole NFT thing just kind of didn't really make sense to me. And I'm just like, you know what? When I have the time to really figure this out, or when I meet somebody who like has the knowledge who can explain this to me, it's something that I don't mind trying to like figure out and getting into. But for now, it's still so much of a huh type
Yeah.
situation that I'm not really trying to like mess with that, I guess.
I think, like, right now, it's still kinda early in the game for it to be, like, something that you could reliably, depend on. Like, there's so many different wannabes in the pool that's kind of like, how do we know, like, when it's legitimate versus just,
hmm
like, people trying to finesse people out of money? But for me, like, the underlying idea of, like, being able to track ownership and prove ownership and, like, allow you to sort of really copyright and protect your ideas and know that it's yours, especially when
hmm
it's things that you create, is so powerful, especially, like, for me, like, as a creative, like, I just wanna focus on the art. Like, whoever needs to get paid for their part of it, let them get paid. Like, I don't care. Like, I want somebody
Yeah.
else. I want the technology to figure that out. Like, I just want to focus on the art. And if that means like I want to sample, a Yeezy track in my video, but then Kanye can get paid in the back end through however it calculates the percentage, do that. Like, but I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, I look at it as a way to free artists up to focus on their art and not have to worry so much of like the financial part of having to provide for themselves. And I'm curious, like, did accounting help you with like the more business side of like being a photographer and a filmmaker because you kind of knew, how to track sort of the cost of your projects and the expenses associated with that, and I guess kind of figure out like, is this viable? How do we really grow this as like a career?
I definitely think it helped because I was always on top of like tracking like what I'm making, tracking like what I'm spending, and I guess that did come from having that kind of background in accounting. So early on, again, when I moved back in 2015, I was working at Telem half days in the morning. They wanted me to work full time, but I wanted to be a photographer. So
I feel you. I
um,
feel you.
yeah, so nearing the end of that year, just because I had tracked, what I was spending and what I was making, I was able to see like, hmm, I'm only doing photography, quote unquote, of my time, and I think that I'm making enough to definitely definitely break even with my expenses. So I know that if I was doing this full time and giving it everything that I have, I would be able to be in the green consistently. So yeah, so I think having that accounting background and the ability to really like track what I was spending, track what I was making, kind of project looking forward. Um, it helped with making the decision to go full time into photography.
Super cool, super cool. And I guess like was it easy as you were like doing all of these sort of experimentation projects to then find clients that were like, "Okay, Cameron, I'm going to pay you to shoot me in XYZ or like I want you to come and shoot this event." Was that like cuz you had that sort of like experimental portfolio to showcase your work and your lens and your vision, easier to sort of sell people on like what am I actually paying for when I
Yeah,
book you? Like, what am I gonna get, when I say, "Come and take this photo for me?"
yeah. So it was definitely one part that where I was really into photography and I was really hungry. Early on in my career, still now, but um, I definitely don't think I shoot as much now as I used to back then, just because it was just like I want to practice, I want to practice, I want to practice. So just constantly having content to put out, people are seeing, okay, not just that he's legit in terms of like work quality, but he's also like putting out work consistently. He must be legit at what he's doing, you
Yeah.
know. So that's on one side, but also on the other side too, because again, Elvis Harrigan, he was already established as a full-time photographer, and he's probably hands down the most well-known person on the island. So just being his right hand for that period in my career, gave me that legitimacy. I think that's
Yeah,
how
I feel it.
that's
Like,
the
the
word.
reputation rubs off. They're like, "Okay,
Yeah,
you're with him, so you must be good because he's good."
yeah,
Yeah, I feel
yeah,
you, I
yeah.
feel you.
People hear that and it's kind of like, oh, so you telling me that you only got so big so quickly because of your association with him? And on one part, I tell them, yeah, it's true. But the only reason I was able to be associated with him was because I was putting in that goddamn work.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't gonna have me riding with him if my quality wasn't up to par, my personality, my work ethic wasn't up to par. I earned the right
Yeah.
to be in his presence, to be able to ride off of his popularity. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we all need mentors, and when you find like a really
Yeah,
good one that like can really take you under their wing, like that's
yeah,
priceless, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
like you said, like you got to do the hard work too. It's not kind of just like, oh, just because you're there, like you have to show
Hmm.
that you're there, but you're there with a purpose, and you're there
Yeah,
really to learn and grow. And I think your work
yeah,
definitely speaks for itself as like this man knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I feel it. I feel it.
yeah.
I'm curious then, are you like a Premiere Pro person? Or are you like Final Cut? Or are you like, I don't really care. I go back and forth. Um, yeah, it just kind of depends on the project.
I am very pro whatever I started using first.
I feel that.
So like right now, I have a cousin of mine who's trying to get on the full time photographer filmmaker career. So I bring him
Yeah.
with me like on jobs and stuff like that. But he recently bought a Sony, right? And I tell him all the time like I have to give you shit, right? Because you're running with me and you have a Sony camera, like this Canon gang all day. But like, at the core, I'm just like the only reason I shoot Canon is because I started on Canon and I wasn't going to learn a whole new interface.
Yeah.
So right now for my editing my videos, I use DaVinci Resolve, and
Mm.
it's simply because DaVinci Resolve is free.
I feel that though.
And but that is what like pro colorists use. So yes, I'm on the software that the pro colorists use, and everybody is now switching to DaVinci Resolve because they want to do color grading and blah blah blah. But I'm just like, I'm only here because it was free, and I wasn't going to pay any additional in my Adobe
That
suite for
being
Premiere.
resourceful
Yeah,
lifestyle. I feel
yeah,
it. I feel it.
yeah.
I feel it. I guess, like, how then like, do you mainly use YouTube as sort of your, like, learning mechanism for, like, editing? Because at least for me, that's what I have been navigating is, like, figuring out, like, even how to know what that editing term is. You just go on YouTube and just binge watch
Mm-hmm.
for hours, just like different editing styles, seeing what it looks like, seeing the process, being like, that looks good. I like that. Don't like that. Kind of playing, by ear
Yep,
and
fucking
finding like your style.
YouTube all day, every day. But again, what maybe it's luck, but what I'm also good at is finding the people whose work I like the most, and or trying to find the guys who use the same softwares that I use, but their work is also really close to like mine, or their work is like work I can aspire to get towards. You know,
Mm,
because yeah, I think the guy whose work videography wise I study the most, I think they use Premiere, but that's fine because I also have guys who I follow who do use DaVinci, who do drop like little tutorials here, there. But sometimes it's as simple as like, I want to know how do I blend this two different audio tracks so that it smooths together. And I just YouTube blend audio in DaVinci Resolve, 3 minute video, boom bam, expert now.
exactly. Exactly. It's that easy. Like I feel like people don't realize like anything you really want to learn is out there. You just got to go find it. And I feel like with editing videos especially there's so many different things, color grading, sound, the clips, the B-roll, like A-roll, all of
Mm-hmm.
these different terms that I'm just like, ugh, maybe I should have gone to film school. But, yeah, I feel like in this day and age, you can really learn anything, and now that you said DaVinci Resolve for color grading, maybe I have to switch up my color grading workflow. I'm like, hmm, hmm, hmm.
But do you film in like log or do you film in a standard profile?
Um, that's a very good question. I don't even know the answer. I just film.
Mm-mm.
Like
Okay.
I take my cameras, I go out there, I film, and then I kind of deal with it all in post. Like for me, I'm trying
Okay.
to figure out my creative process. Like that's why I've been like really taking a bunch of different courses to really just hone in on what am I trying to say? Why is that what I'm trying to say? What are like the inspirations that really like speak to me just from my childhood of
Mm-hmm.
growing up watching different types of like cinematography from like American
Mm-hmm.
films, French films, Indian films, just getting influence from all of that and just trying to figure out like yeah, like how do I get it to look the way that I want? So that's kind of where I'm at, just kind of playing around, having fun with it,
Mm.
trying to not make it work because I feel like editing, I don't think people understand how much work goes into editing a video. Like,
No.
I
No.
give YouTubers credit because this 2 times a week, I'm like,
Hmm.
"How in the hell?
Yeah,
How?"
but they eventually form a rhythm,
Yeah.
and you get to the point where you already editing in your head while you're filming, so you already know, okay, this is where I'm gonna cut, and then your next clip, okay, I'm probably gonna use this as a transition to go into this. So they're editing while they're filming, so then that's how it kind of
Yeah.
becomes a little bit easier.
See, I just
So
gotta
that's
keep practicing, gotta build that muscle
yeah,
memory for
and also
sure.
too. So if you're gonna get into color grading, then you definitely have to figure out how you can shoot in log.
Oh, like, are you talking about, like, analog versus
No, no,
digital?
no, no. So what camera do you use? What brand?
Like I just have a GoPro and then I have one of those like old school like camcorder
Mm,
things?
okay. So whenever you get a chance, you should Google just log, log. For Canon, it would be C log. For Sony, it would be S
Oh.
log. Um, have you ever seen somebody post a video, but it looks really like gray and like washed out? Like, if
Yeah,
you
like
ever
there's like
seen,
people that I watch. I don't know if you're familiar with Hindsight's videos, but like I love the warmth that like comes through the footage itself. Like there's like a soft warmthness.
okay,
But there was even like that clip that you shot with Deshaun that I really liked, which is why I remember I messaged you about like what you use to give
okay.
that blur sort of like
So you
soft
see, if
tone.
if I show you what that video looked like before I edited, it would look just like gray and washed out. Because when you shoot in log, it captures like all the information, but it gives you a very flat final product that you
Interesting.
need to color grade.
Oh, so it's like for the camera, the optimization algorithm just washes out the hues even though the data is there, and then in color grading, you
Yes.
sort of
Yeah.
adjust for your
So
eye.
so sometimes
Super cool.
sometimes your camera would say that it has like 14 stops of dynamic range, but
I see.
it only has that if you shoot in log. You don't
Oh,
have it if you shoot in a flat profile.
I see.
Okay. Do you know the difference between a JPEG and raw footage?
I know it's
Like
the
a
compression algorithm, right, of how it,
Yeah.
like, finalizes the pixel, but I don't actually know what the difference is.
So for example, if you take a picture in JPEG, no, if you take a picture raw, the picture has, let's just say, 20 different layers, and your camera gives you that those 20 layers. So your picture would be 50 megapixels because it has those 20 layers stacked in one product. But if you take that same picture as a JPEG, it might only be 5 megabytes because what the camera does is it takes those 20 images and smacks them together and gives you one. So when you take that picture into Lightroom, you don't, if you use the JPEG, there's nothing to play with.
Mm.
There's
It's
no
like it is what it
information.
is.
It is
Everything's
what it is.
set. Yeah.
So if you try to change the temperature on a JPEG, the camera will add Lightroom will either add blue or add orange or yellow. But if you try to change the temperature on a raw picture, you can actually change the Kelvin value.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That
no,
is so cool.
that's for pictures. So the same thing happens for video where if you shoot in a standard profile, it's like shooting a JPEG. If you shoot in log, it's like shooting in raw.
Clearly, I need to hang out with you more is what I'm getting from this conversation. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm learning so much."
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious. Oh, no, go ahead. Finish what you
No,
were saying.
no, last week Sunday, I had some friends and I were hanging out. There was like five of us as photographers in total, and then three models. And, just they're just trying to like get into the game and understand the cameras and stuff like that. So I was just like, the first thing all of you need to do is change your cameras to RAW. That's the first thing. I don't care what happens after that. Your camera in RAW, your camera in RAW, your camera in RAW, and when they taking their pictures now to Lightroom, they're like, "Oh my God, I can like open the shadows and I can bring the highlights down and I can do this and I can do that because there's so much more information now." Yeah, one picture is 50 megabytes versus 5 or 10, but there's so much more
But
information that you can
why? Yeah,
play.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Cause like, the engineer in me is like, "Oh," cause like, I on the flip side, like, I see how we build cameras, and how we test for cameras, and how we test the color accuracy of cameras, and how we test the brightness adaptation and all of that, and so when you're saying this, I'm like, "Oh," like, it's, like, clicking. I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
Hmm.
I'm seeing the light," which I love, which is yeah, like, I love that. I'm curious then, do you have a preference for then digital cameras over analog cameras, and similar with film, like using, digital, methods for capturing the moment of film versus, like, analog film that's really like film rolls, like
So
canisters, tape, all that?
I haven't, I've shot pictures on film, not video. I think being in this era, I prefer digital just because there's less, like you have more chances to make up if you make a mistake, right?
I feel you.
If you have a roll of film that has 24 shots in it, that's it,
That's
game done.
it. Yeah.
Um, but what I learned about film is that back in the day, that's kind of why they created Polaroid pictures. So what they would do is they would take the Polaroid picture first, and then in like 5 minutes they would kind of see what the picture looks like, and they're like, okay, so now they shoot on film after, because they kind of have an idea of what the picture is going to look like. But
Interesting.
yeah, so that's kind of why Polaroid, or how Polaroid came around, because they could see it almost instantly, and then now they could set their settings to shoot in on the film.
Wow.
Yeah,
Photography history right here. Like,
just a little
oh my
bit.
gosh. You know,
Yeah,
this is
but
the stuff that I love though, because it's like it gives me
yeah,
like better understanding of the technology and the evolution of it and like the human motivation as to why we even did that, you know? And it's funny,
yeah,
it's because they
yeah,
just wanted to check. And they were just like, I don't want to waste this whole thing of film. Like, can
yeah,
somebody? And the
yeah.
engineers were like, we got you, fam. We got you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Polaroid.
yeah. But shooting on film has also allowed me to like slow down a lot. Um,
Mm,
so on a shoot, I try. I remember earlier in my career, I would go on a shoot with somebody and they have one outfit, and I leave that shoot with like 300 pictures, right? Now, if I have a shoot with somebody and they have one outfit, we're maybe gonna shoot like 40. Like, we're gonna think about it a little bit more. We're gonna move around a little bit more. But why am I shooting 300 pictures for one outfit? So having shot on film, or having listened to people talk about film, it helps you to slow down, because think about it like, I only have 36 frames, and I need to make each one of these frames really count, instead of
yeah.
finding yourself in a situation where it's just like, brap, 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 brap. Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how do you deal with memory? Like, the actual, like, data integrity of your images? Like, do you store it on the cloud? Do you just go, like, to, like, hard drives? Do you just save it on SD cards? Do you have, like, a storage room for, like, the actual film itself?
Um,
Like, how do you go about that?
so before, I was completely fine because I was just taking pictures. So it was easy to just have mm, 3, 4 hard drives, and I have all my pictures between 2016 and now. What I try to do is, as often as possible, have like copies. So like right now, I think at the end of this year, I'm probably gonna do it, but I'm just gonna have hard drives that mirror each other. So I'm gonna have one with 2016 to 2022, and another one with the same thing, just in case some miraculous craziness happens.
I feel
But now, having shooting film, shooting being a filmmaker now is just like, space is not the same, because
I know. I'm just
yeah,
like, ah, I'm
yeah.
like, I'm running out of memory. Where do I put all these damn files? Like a terabyte becomes a joke. I'm like, oh my
I
gosh.
mean, that's like a wedding,
Exactly.
one
Exactly.
wedding.
I'm like,
Yeah,
ah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's been one of the things that, like, for me, I've noticed is such an interesting problem for creatives is like memory. Like, how do we actually deal with memory, storing
yeah.
memory, making sure that it stays like the actual ones and zeros actually
Hmm.
maintain integrity so that if you plug that hard drive in now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the file is still going to be there and it's not going to be
Yeah,
corrupted.
yeah,
It's not going to be like, error, I don't know how to open this file, and you're like, now is
yeah.
not the time for this. Okay, like this is not
Hmm.
okay.
There's one set of guys I know who use like, I think like the RAID system, where they have one set of hard drives where they have everything, but I think that's connected to like a cloud system. So they can access their files from the office, they access their files at home. But there's another guy, Eric Floberg, and I think he does not do a cloud system, but what he does is he has copies of stuff. So whatever he has at the office, he also has copies of that at home, just in case there's a fire at the office or somebody breaks into his house. He has copies of them in at least like 2 or 3 different places.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't wait till we get to the point where we're storing everything in glass. Because like that's something that like we're
In
I know
glass?
you're like confused. This is a thing. Like it's one of the areas that Microsoft Research focuses on is like memory. It's actually like how do we store our data in a way that we can have it for generations upon generations without it like actually degrading over time, and glass is like a great medium for that because glass is inert, it is not reactive to anything, it's stable, and you can like etch the data into the glass using light, which is such an interesting thing because when you build it out it becomes this like interesting hologram of like information, and then when you need to access it it just goes through each layer, knows where to get the file, and you can store way more. And I'm like, wow, I cannot wait till this becomes more mainstream, where you like have glass slabs that literally look like art installations, but they're full of information that could be like capturing a whole series, and it's not really a thing where we're like as so stressed out about are we
Mm-hmm.
actually going to store all of this information, because yeah, with videos especially if you start to shoot in like higher resolution they just become massive files, like
Bruh.
absolutely massive, and then the projects
Mm.
themselves become massive, and then when you
Bruh.
gotta export, I'm like, "I wanna know how big that Wakanda file was at the end." I'm like, "How long did it
Bro.
take to even export that damn picture?"
Yeah, but they're probably on souped up Mac Studios and they don't have any issues with like exporting. I need to get one of those because I have my iMac is from like 2013, and it was before Apple got smart and sealed the the bodies of the computers because I can still open the back of mine and just put
Oh.
additional RAM inside of it because I was in the lucky batch before they discontinued that
They were
one.
like, "Yeah, no, we not letting y'all into the hardware at all. This is a
Yeah,
secret. No
yes,
entry."
but now it's just like after doing video for the last like 2 years, my computer is just like save me. Yeah, because before it was just like Lightroom in Photoshop, but now it's DaVinci Resolve as well. So there's like these three programs that are almost running like all the time, and my
I
computer is just like
feel it.
some
Always have to keep
days.
it plugged in, just
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
battery is like, "What are you doing?
yeah.
We're gonna die now." Like, we
It's
don't
just
have
like,
capacity
it,
for this.
can we only run these two programs today? Like, why do we have to run all three?
Plus, you have your mood board open with, like, a bajillion Pinterest tabs too. It's just like,
Yeah,
"Babe, what do you this is too
mm-hmm.
much." Like, I'm like, "What did you
Yeah,
make me for?" But then as, like, the engineer, I'm like, "Exactly." Like, I wanna stress the bejesus out of this device. I wanna see where it breaks so I
yeah,
can go back to the team and be like, "Guys, this is where we suck, and we need to fix this ASAP," because the future is a creator economy, and there's no reason why our devices cannot handle the heat. I'm like, "They need to be able to handle the heat," you know?
yeah. So a Mac Studio is in my future.
Don't say this, okay? You're talking to Surface over here. I cannot hear these
Oh,
words. La 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 la
oh,
la.
okay, okay.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
What is the Apple equivalent? I mean, what
We have
is
like
the
Surface Studio,
okay?
and they're like it's like a massive. Actually, those are made for creatives. They're actually really beautiful. They're like a desktop that can actually fold down like a canvas, and like you can like do a bunch more. Like they're it's pretty much designed with like Adobe and all of that, software in mind. So but I'm telling you, as an engineer there, I'm pushing. I'm pushing for great things, especially as a creative. Like you want to be able to do it all. And if our devices
Hmm.
can't keep up, then it's like, hello, why did I spend all this money on you? Waste of
Right? Like,
time.
why aren't you working? Like, I didn't pay this money for you to be,
Not handling your weight. Like this is your
bruh.
job. Why are you
Like,
slacking on the job?
Photoshop
Like
unexpectedly
crashing.
quit, and I'm just like, why?
Now is not
Why,
the time for this. Now is not the
bruh,
time.
bruh?
I'm curious then for like young folks that are like trying to get into the content creation space, they're trying to do their thing, express their creative self. They're trying to learn it all, you know what I mean, from like film and editing and video. I guess like do you have any advice as, going in the space, traveling to the US where there's a completely different standard of excellence for this type of industry, and then there's even just, like, a lot of uncertainty, I feel like even still in the Caribbean, and on St. Martin, like, creative fields are not really supported, even though like when they are successful, our country will be the first one to be like, that's our people right there, go off sis, but then actually they're not going to care about any of the actual work to get you there.
We know.
Yeah, just like
Oh
any
yeah.
advice for people that are trying to go down that path, but it seems scary, there's just so much uncertainty. And like how to, they're not sure like how am I gonna compete? Where am I gonna stand?
Hmm.
Just advice for people. Yeah, they're trying to express their creative side, through these mediums that are just so great.
If there's one thing Instagram forcefully teaches us is that consistency is king. Because if you post on Instagram today and your page, let's just say your stories are getting like 800, 1,000 views, if you don't post on Instagram for the next 4 days, when you come back and you post on that fourth day, your story is going to get like 30 views. Instagram will let you know that you need to post every day if you want these numbers to stay up. And I feel like that teaches the content creators consistency because you need to keep being at it, being at it, being at it, being at it. And that also means creating more content. That also means practicing more, you know? Um, so yeah, consistency is king. That would be the first thing I would tell to anybody who's trying to get into this space. But also find the top three people that you like. Make sure that their tab is always open in your internet browser and just don't close it. Make sure that you're looking at those tabs every day. You look at their pictures and then you look at your pictures and then you feel like shit because your pictures don't look that good. And then tomorrow when you go out and shoot, have this person's picture on your phone and try to figure out like how did they get this picture lit like this, you know? So yeah, that would be the second step. Find the three people that you like the most and just for the most part, copy, 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 copy. Eventually, your work will get to match theirs, but along the way, you'll also find your own style because you'll figure out, I don't really like this from this person, but I like this from this person, and you'll figure your style out along the way. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's
Great
it, really. Like,
advice.
I think those two things over a period of time would develop somebody into like
Yeah,
a
without a
pretty
doubt,
good,
without a doubt. I'm
yeah.
curious then, like, how can folks like say they're like, I want to shoot with Cameron, or like, I want to see his work. Where can they find you? Like, where do you suggest people go if they want to connect with you, work with you, collab on things? Yeah, just do anything that's kind of film photography related.
Definitely my Instagram. I think that's where I'm like the most active. It's Cameron Hyman, ITS, and then Cameron Hyman. Secondly, I want to say email. You can email the hand at CameronHyman.com. And yes, I took that from Game of Thrones. And that is my assistant's email because you'll get her before you get me.
Hey, but you know yourself. You're like,
Yeah,
I know who you gotta talk to if you're trying to
yeah,
get to me. So
yeah. So my Instagram or email the hand at CameronHyman.com.
awesome, awesome. I guess do you have any final words for the people before we let them get back to their day of enjoying life, living it up?
Not really. I mean, if you're a creative or you're trying to get into this space, I say go for it. This space has space, so don't ever feel like it's too crowded for you. The sooner you find people, let's just say around the world, whose work that you like, that you can emulate, the better. But also find somebody who is within arm's reach, who you can have as, for lack of a better expression, again, like a mentor. Definitely, like having somebody that you can ask a question will help you to learn something in 3 minutes that it'll take you 3 months to learn on YouTube by yourself. Feel free to check out my book, my Moonlight series book. That should be dropping in December as well. We're supposed to have a book launch. We're trying to settle on a date, but by the time this is out, that should already be out too. So
Cool, cool. So then people know where to go. Get your copy, support local photographers, local creatives. Don't just say it, be
Mhm.
about it.
Right?
Exactly.